Hello, and welcome to Challenge Solutions. My name is Macy, and today I'm going to be giving 10 tips for band directors with blind students. I've played French horn in my high school band for 5 years now, and I have done a lot of my learning through trial and error, so hopefully these tips will help you in whatever situation you're in. Sadly, I have never had the opportunity to participate in a marching band, so I did make this list of tips with a concert setting in mind, but a lot of them will apply in marching band as well. So let's get started. Tip number 1 is assess your student on an individual level. It may sound silly, but one of the biggest misconceptions about blindness is that every blind person has perfect pitch and superhuman hearing. This is simply not true. I have been legally blind since birth, and I've had to really work to train my ear. So every blind student is going to be at a different level musically. Of course, you are going to have some blind students who have a knack for music, just like you would with some sighted students. But don't be surprised if your 6th grade beginning band student is not Stevie Wonder. Tip number 2 is cater to your student's needs. There is no right or wrong way for your blind student to learn their music. In junior high, I learned with recordings that my band director would make. She would sing my part for the pieces, explain how the rhythms worked on the page, and I would memorize the music by ear and play it that way. I switched to Braille music in the 10th grade, but that was because I plan on pursuing music as a career, so that is what I needed. I will say that Braille music is required for sight reading at all region and all state in the state of Arkansas, as well as for any band activities that follow the ASBOA guidelines. So that is something to keep in mind, but Braille music is very hard to learn and there aren't many good resources for learning it. It's a really complicated code and every student is not going to pick up on it quickly. So personally, I recommend starting with recordings and then having a conversation with your student about where they want to go with their music and assessing the situation from there. Tip number 3 is ask questions about what works best for your student. At Challenge Solutions, we encourage self-advocacy as much as possible. So in an ideal world, every blind student would tell their teachers exactly what they needed. But unfortunately, that does not always happen. A lot of blind students have a really hard time with this, and this is especially true in band because we don't always know what we need. Your blind student may have never learned sheet music before, so the whole process may be trial and error for you. Because of this, it's really important that you encourage your student to tell you what works and what does not work so that you can find the learning style that works best for both of you. Tip number 4 is do not substitute learning by ear for learning actual music theory. Your student may be able to pick up pieces by ear and it may be very easy for them, but you still need to provide them with the knowledge of how the piece is laid out on the paper. They need to know about notes and rhythms and accents just like any other student does, because as the music gets harder, your student may need to understand time signatures or key signatures or how a measure is subdivided to understand the notes and rhythms that they need to be playing. Tip number 3 is keep the band room as organized as possible. This is just a general statement and tip. The more organized your band room is, the easier it's going to be for your blind student to navigate and find the items/places they may need to find. If you can, have the room set up before they come. I know some music rooms are multi-purpose. You might have band, choir, and general music in the same classroom, but if you can set up the band room before the students get there, that is always helpful. In addition, if you can put your blind student on an end seat, that is also helpful so that we don't have to walk past everyone's stands and instruments to find our place. However, do not sacrifice your sound for this. Your blind student will figure it out, but if it's a matter of them being first from the end or third from the end, go ahead and put them on the end seat just so that they can find their chair more easily. Also, have specific places for every instrument in the storage room. This is going to help your blind student find their instrument and also know what's going to be between them and their instrument, so this is very important. In addition to this, try to keep mallets and binders and bottles of valve oil, things like that, out of the floor because your blind student is not going to see those and they could be a tripping hazard. Also, if your student is a percussionist, do your best to keep instruments and mallets in specific places so that your student can find what they need when they need it. And generally, just have a clean up after yourself policy. This will just help your student to be comfortable and familiar with the room and setup. Tip number 6 is assign a band buddy. There are going to be times when your student is going to need help in band or at concerts. One example that I always have trouble with is walking on and off stage, because you want to do that in a way that's graceful and not distracting. I personally don't like to use my cane on stage, so I have a buddy guide me. Because of situations like this, it can be a good idea to assign one person to help your blind student throughout the year, but you should be careful when choosing this student. You don't want someone who's going to be condescending or someone who's going to try to do too much. You should watch and see who your student naturally gravitates toward. If you can, pick someone from their friend group, and if you aren't sure, you can always ask your student in private who they would like to help them. Tip number 7 is be descriptive. Remember that your blind student cannot see you when you're conducting or when you're writing on the board. So if there's a specific expression that you want that is not written in the music, you should explain that out loud. Also, if your student is memorizing their music, they probably do not know the specific measure numbers. So when you say something like, "Alright, everyone go to measure 42, you might add, "Macy, this is where you have 16th notes starting on F, E, D, F." And that just gives the blind student an idea of where you're starting in the piece before you start. Tip number 8 is give your student one-on-one instruction whenever possible. This is especially important in beginning band because your student cannot see anything you're doing, so you need to make sure they're holding their instrument correctly, sitting with good posture, breathing correctly, and you just need to be sure they're grasping all the important foundations that you're laying out for them, because a lot of that is very visual. It's my senior year and I still need one-on-one time with my band director just to make sure my music is brailled correctly and that I am where I need to be and doing what I need to be doing in every piece. In general, it can just be hard for a blind student to keep up in a band class where things are moving very fast and you're getting a lot of information at once, so it's just good to check in with your student to be sure they're doing okay and they aren't overwhelmed or falling behind. Tip number 9 is include your student. Even though blind musicians require a lot of one-on-one attention, they still are a part of your band and a part of the group as a whole. And it's really important that you treat them like they are. Try not to separate them and call them out. Of course, be sure they have anything they need, but just consider the way you talk to them in front of the other students. But in general, just talk to them and treat them like you would any other student. Don't walk on eggshells or think that they're going to be offended by any little thing you say. Also, try to consider your blind student when you're planning activities and band trips, and try to find something that everyone in your band is going to enjoy. Tip number 10 is give your blind student as many opportunities as possible. Although people with blindness are known for being musically inclined and musically talented, a lot of the competitions and activities that are encouraged in the band world are actually not very accessible for the blind, especially if they can't read Braille music. So any opportunity you can give your blind student is really going to help them. For example, if there is an honor band that does not require sight reading, try to get your blind student involved in that. They need experience playing with a big band in a band that is not yours. Also, events like solo and ensemble can give your blind student an opportunity to showcase his or her own talent or to work with a group and make friends. I know it sometimes takes extra work on your end, but your student will appreciate it in the long run, and it really is worth it to make your student the best musician they can be. So that is the last tip in this video. I hope you found it helpful, and I hope these tips will help you with your blind students in band. If you liked it and want to see more content like this, please give this video a thumbs up, and if you have questions or suggestions for future videos, you can leave them in the comment section or in the contact form at challengesolutions.org. Keep an eye out for more blog posts, podcasts, and YouTube videos from Challenge Solutions, and we hope to see you in the next video. Thank you for watching.